Hello and welcome to the yoga. Today is day 156 and the numbers are exactly the same as yesterday. So I'm thinking that they have chosen to do something different with how they update either the government or the website. So we are going today to be talking about Santosha and contentment. So Santosha, San first bit means entirety, completely, the whole, altogether, and the tosha bit means contentment, satisfaction, acceptance, being. And so it's how can we find that in our lives and how can we find that in our yoga practice? So first of all, in our yoga practice, obviously the concept of accepting where we are is very, very important. It comes in through lots of different parts of the different yoga philosophies. So how can we be present where we are and accept where we are and really be with that, be back and in the body and settled in the body so we are in that moment rather than forever trying to be somewhere else, someone else, something else. So when you're practicing, try to come back to, when I think of the word contentment, it usually kind of has the connotations of sitting in the sofa with a nice warm drink and everyone around me being fine. And, the sense that the day is kind of somehow somewhat completed and I can now rest is what I have a feeling of as for contentment. But I'd think that it's somewhat... I don't know if you have that concept, but if you do, then it's worth unpicking it because there's something else that's kind of important with that. And it's kind of as time changes and as you change and your mind changes, that concept is probably going to evolve so that the feeling of contentment can be the sense that when you're presented with a situation where there are two different truths or there is a conflict or a disharmony, that within that there can be a sense of wholeness and okayness and maybe even rightness with what appears to be going wrong or that you can witness as not what you had planned. So that even within moments of discomfort and disharmony, that there can still be a whole within that or a whole found from that. And a friend was describing it a little bit like a yin-yang. So the idea that the light and the dark can sit together and there's still a whole, there's still a completeness, there's still something that feels right, even though we can see both sides of that. So that's a nice little thought for you. What I was thinking about the physical discomfort one. So when we're in a yoga pose and we feel physical discomfort and we feel pain, it's very hard for us to settle. I think the physical body, I was just talking about the mental realm of when we view two things, so now I'm taking it through to the physical. So if we take a physical situation where you are uncomfortable, so say I come into a pose and instead of doing it sensibly, I pull myself into shapes. And now, actually, I've got quite a nice stretch over my thigh. But if I do this and pull it up and kind of get uncomfortable, I'm so aware of my physical body. I'm so aware of my waist saying, you're doing this, my hips saying, you're doing this, my legs going, oh my goodness, what are you doing? Why have you pulled my spine into this position? Why are you holding so tight? Why is your breathing so tight? I find it very, very hard to engage with the feeling of contentment because I've got other information that is so loud. So part of doing yoga most of the time is of settling the body into a position of comfort and enough comfort so that you can relax into the pose. So instead of pulling myself up tight, I might say, right, I'll loosen this off a little bit, bend this leg now, I feel settled in the hips. And as I move around, I've got some proprioception, the kind of information about where my body is and the kinesthetic feedback to tell me, how am I feeling right now? I've got these things going on, but they're not so loud that I can't be myself as well. So it's that sense of coming back to yourself. So sometimes I talk about it in terms of back position or alignment of the spine. So when we come far forwards, we come out into the front of the body. We come out of ourselves to being what other people want us to be. When we settle back into the back of the body, we can retreat, we can hide, we can come away from what other, build walls around ourselves to hide from ourselves almost. So we come back from that, and ideally in yoga we're wanting most of the time to find an in-between position, so we are in a neutral position, so we're with the outside world, with the internal world, and that we are balanced within it. And that is that, again, that sense of contentment and balance and harmony. And how we find that in real terms. So it's all very well saying, we stand up and we have a neutral spine. Wait until something presses your button. So maybe I had an unusual situation with a car where somebody was very sure that I had parked my car up against his, and he came out kind of out there to be annoyed with me. And it was very interesting because of where I was and because I knew where I'd left my car, and his car wasn't there at the time, etc., etc., etc. It's a long story that I won't bore you with, which I was really delighted actually. No, let's just not go there. Anyway, the point was that because of where I was at that particular moment, so it could have been very, very different. He was a nice bloke, I think, just having a bad day. Often I wouldn't come out and meet that situation with my bigger self, like, wow, no, I don't think so. Or maybe I wouldn't say that at all, but actually I didn't go, or I would go back and go, oh gosh, blimey, this bloke looks really furious and what the heck's going on here. But actually, because I was so confused and curious about the situation actually at the time, because I was like, how very unusual. What the heck is going on here? I was actually in a more balanced state, so I didn't go out forwards or back into the back of myself and retreat. I just I really need to find out more about this. So I think that sense of staying alert and curious can be really helpful to finding a feeling of contentment, because you are almost saying, I can see the things that are presented to me. I can see the different signs of these things going on. So you're aware of them, but it's less reactionary, so it's less going out and into forcefully or just meeting that. Just like, I can see these things. I wonder what is happening next. So these are some of my thoughts. When we're starting to get into the concept of being physically, so we've discussed like the physical, how we can have physical comfort, discomfort, what effect that has on the body. Love it. I'm not answering. I'm going to have to stop it. So physical discomfort. Where were we? Physical discomfort. So we discussed the physical discomfort in the body. When we have physical discomfort in the body that is too much, our breathing is affected. In yoga, it's absolutely vital that your breathing is whole and free and as happy as can be. So when we try too hard, that becomes impossible. We cannot access that feeling of freedom in the breath. So it's really, really important to come back to that. And then the other thing I wanted to come to was the sense of when we have discomfort in our lives in general. So, for instance, the situation of being really, really hungry and strung out because you're starving, or not starving at all, actually, bad use of words. But when you're really, really, really hungry and you're way out of sorts because you're so hungry, these are really, really helpful moments, because they are times when the physical body is saying something very strongly to us. And obviously there's a multitude of options of how far you want to go into that concept of physical discomfort within the body and how we relate to that. But I think it can be really helpful to work with, because when we can meet a situation that's what we think is beyond our capabilities, and yet somehow, somewhere in us, we can find something that allows it to be somewhat easier, or even to transform it, that's absolutely fantastic. And that is, I think, ideally what yoga is about. And the ability to, well, the practice of meditation I find really, really helpful in that process. So, in the process of just staying more settled, I would say settled, more settled, so that when the unusual happens, whether it's physical discomfort, whether it's fear, whether it's anger and aggression, those sorts of things, whether it's deep grief, all of these things, that we have more resilience and more self-centeredness. See, self-centeredness is such a fabulous word, isn't it? Because I actually believe we have a responsibility to be somewhat self-centered. Because if I am not self-centered, how can I relate to anyone? Another discussion. I'm talking too much. I can feel I could go off on a byline here, and I'm not going to. I'm going to stay centered. So these are my thoughts for you on contentment, and my last little thought on contentment is that if you are Edinburgh based, there is a nice yoga studio run by my friend called Santosha. So if you're looking for a little bit of acceptance and a little bit of comfort, you might want to go and have a cake there. I very much hope that you have a lovely, contented day and a sense of contentment in the truest, most fullest way that you can imagine. Thank you.